What I want to talk to you about is when not just a relationship is good and solid, but when it thrives. And so for that to happen, and for those, anyone in a relationship, it's when you really get to understand what the other person wants, right? Not the basics, but really understand what motivates them, what they really care about. And so I want to share with you the 5 things that, in the experience of working with many CTOs, VPs of engineering, when relationships really thrive, what are the 5 things that I thought about that made it really work? And so I invite you to consider those. A successful outcome for me today is that if you take one of these and try it out when you get back. So who of you actually have a product partner back in your organization? Okay, great. Who of you are both product and engineering at your company? Okay, for those of you who have split personalities right now, you're going to keep your engineering hat on and you're going to allow my voice in your head to be that product person. And then you can integrate this back into your daily life when you get back. Okay, so I knew you were a technical audience, right? So Etienne and I were talking about this. It's like you're all deeply technical. So what I figured out was if I take these 5 things and I can make them in an equation and I can put these together in a way that's weighted and has an algorithm, you will have something that you can go back to your desks with, right? So that's my goal. I'm kidding, right? I'm a product person. You're going to have pretty images for the next 10 minutes, so settle back. There's no equations here. Okay, so the first thing to think about is empathy, is love. And I'm not talking about between your CPO and your CTO. I'm talking about it from a customer perspective. If you think about what a product leader is responsible for, what we care about is bringing customer insight into the organization. We are, and we take this really seriously, we are the voice of customer. So what does that mean, right? It means that we go talk to customers, we listen to them, we watch them, we follow them home, and then we bring back that learning and that insight into our organization. And what we want is for people to communicate that effectively so that everyone gets it. In the perfect relationship, the product person is responsible for the what and the why, and your engineering partner is responsible for the how. We've got to get it right from the beginning. And the way that we do that is by listening to customers. I'm going to tell you 2 Etienne stories. I think everyone knows here is Etienne. This is my first one. So this is what a great relationship looks like. He and I were in a startup. We both were advisors into a very early stage startup about a year ago. And so this is the very first time that we were releasing software. The app is live technology. It's live action shopping. And you can think about it as QVC and HSN have a baby, and it's an app and it's online and you can buy things immediately. It's a really cool technology, but it was alpha. It was the very first time that customers were going to see it. And so what I did, because I was absolutely adamant that we had to go watch customers experience our app for the first time, was that I wrote a script, I put the test together, and I came up with a hypothesis of what I believed was going to happen, right? Did my job. And then I took the 2 other business people on the team, and I got them to run the test. Here's what we're going to do. The customers are going to come in, this is how it's going to go, this is what we're going to watch for, these are the questions we're going to ask. So Etienne puts his hand up, and he goes, I want to talk to customers too. That changed the nature of the relationship, because now it's not my responsibility. I've got my tech partner with me, standing right next to me and doing those tests. So when he's talking to customers, he's bringing in his insight by directly talking to them, not waiting for this information to be given to him. And you know what? His team is watching him. His team is watching him interview customers with a script, running it the way that a product person would. That is true customer empathy, and that makes marriages thrive. That was number 1. Number 2, okay, so who's a parent? Yeah? So you know the golden rule, right? You argue behind a closed door, and then you get up there and you do not let your kids smell blood, right? You better bring up that united face, because if they do, it's all over. They're going to play you against each other. It's just going to be brutal. So that's what we have to do as well. The best organizations that I work with, the best partners, is that you argue behind a closed door and no one on either of your teams will ever know that that's what happened. That is not to say that you're going to agree about everything. In fact, again, good relationships, good results means that you have healthy debate, but you don't let your team see. Because I've been in organizations where, and you think about a 2x2. This is the closest I'm going to get to an algorithm here. You've got your support and don't support on one side of the grid. You've got your agree and disagree on the other side. And you think about the quadrants, and you think about the combinations of those. The one that's toxic, the one that you absolutely can't allow to happen, is that if you agree in front of someone and you don't support them behind their back. Because the minute that happens, your teams sit back and they wait. And especially engineering teams, I'll tell you, because they know that there is an agreement, that they know their leader isn't supporting this, even though they're saying something, they're acting differently. And everything sort of goes to hell in a handbasket if that happens. So watch out and know that if you disagree, hash those things out, but present that united front. Okay, that was number 2. Number 3. That's supposed to say no fences. I'm not entirely sure what happened there, but it says no fences. So what I mean by no fences is this is the red flag to watch out for. The minute someone on your team as engineers talks about getting requirements, that is like the kiss of death. You don't want to talk about it as getting requirements. For agile teams, it's self-empowered, we're working together, we're understanding the customer problem, we're figuring out, we're asking lots of questions in a healthy way. But the minute a team says, I'm waiting for the requirements, or the requirements aren't done, that to me is a huge red flag, because what it's done is it's drawn a line between my responsibility and someone else's. They're not requirements. We're figuring out like what we're trying to build for the customer. It's fine to say that doesn't seem clear, or that user story doesn't seem as well written, or we don't quite have the definition of done here defined. All of those things are fine. But when you start talking about it in terms of one responsibility or another, I would say watch out, dig into that and figure out what's going on. And is it something that you're doing in terms of waiting for a handoff? Are you arbitrarily or signaling that there are milestones, which means that your team isn't engaging until this thing happens? So requirements for me is a big red flag, but watch out for those handoffs. Number 4, share the pen. So what I mean by this is that it's great to be collaborative, but it changes when you actually give the pen to someone else. So this is my second Etienne story. So we were working again at this startup. We only meet once a week because both of us are advisors, and we used to hash things out. And we had a problem with payment, right? We had a problem sort of thinking through, there were some technology issues. So what happens is Etienne gets up to the whiteboard and he starts drawing boxes and starts telling us like what's happening here. And then there were some questions, and I'm dangerous a little bit sometimes because I have enough technology to be kind of like ask some scary questions, but not enough to actually do anything useful, so don't worry. So I started asking questions, and what he did was he gave me the pen. That's incredibly powerful, because what we're used to as leaders is that we're used to being in the front of the room. We're used to explaining and helping demonstrate and showing how things break down. The minute you kind of stop and you give the pen to your partner and invite them to come up with you, it changes the dynamic. So I'd invite you to try that. The reverse happened as well. I was talking about a feature, we were putting a patent together, and I was outlining sort of the 3 key pieces that were differentiating and protectable in terms of our IP. And Etienne came up and started talking about something, and I gave him the pen. He walked up and he started drawing what he believed was going to be a differentiator, and it was. So our patent changed to become 4 differentiated aspects, because instead of just telling me and waiting for me to do something about it, he was invited up and he got the pen. So you can call this being inclusive, you can call it being collaborative. All of those words are great. Physically do something, give them the pen, be on that whiteboard together. Make sense? Cool. Okay, the last one. And this is going to be, I think, maybe the hardest one for me to help you embrace surprises, because engineers hate surprises, right? Like that's bottom line. I mean, your whole job is to make sure there are no surprises. And here I am saying, could you embrace them? But as a product person, that's what I look for. Every time I coach product teams, it's about savor the surprise. Because what I mean by that is when you're watching customers, we have solutions. We're all problem solvers in this room. Anyone in technology, we are attracted to it because we like solving problems. But what happens when we do that is that we have solutions that we are expecting to look for. So we go hunt and get validation that the person is saying or doing the thing that will make our jobs go, yeah, I knew it, I'm right? We're looking for validation. But a good product manager doesn't look for validation. A great product manager savors a surprise. So when someone does something odd or unexpected, or comes in with a different piece of technology, or they do something manually, that's when our ears go up. Because that means that they're doing something different. They found a workaround. They have found a way to solve a problem differently that they're not necessarily telling you. And I'm sure you've all heard the adage about customers want and customers need, right? People will tell you what they want. Our jobs is to figure out what they actually need. But the way that you do that is by savoring the surprise. That's how you turn observations and understanding into insights that you can deliver on. So when you go in there and you find something that's a huge surprise, it can be incredibly intimidating to come back to an engineering team and tell them this, because you've got plans, you've made architectural designs, you've been working on this for months, and now suddenly you had this aha moment that something that you're doing is fundamentally different and you've got to figure it out. But that's what's going to turn into customer delight, because you figured out the thing that they were doing and the surprise, you figured out how to solve it in such a way that is actually going to make them a much more interesting, much more loyal application, something that leads to customer love. Because at the end of the day, what do we want? We want to build software that people use, they tell other people, and they buy lots. Fundamentally, that's why we're in business. And the surprises are how you get there. So next time, make it a little bit easier for your product person to come back with you with that research that says it's a surprise. And instead of tossing your hands up in horror and thinking about all the different things that this is going to do to your plan, ask a question. Pull on it, pull on the string, figure out what's going on, what real impact that it has, because that is what's going to change the delivery of your products. Okay, so there's my obligatory sci-fi slide. So there you go. I just thought it was cool. So the 5 things are like empathy, right? So think about actually getting to go with your product leader, have empathy for your customers firsthand, not just by reading, not by listening, not just by plugging into a customer service call. These are all good things, but I want you to actually go next time to a customer visit. Make sure you present that united front, be that strong CPO, CTO pair. Think about watch out for the red flags when you see something being sort of tossed over or something being sort of anything territorial. Really dig out those, don't let it go. Those are the things that you want to kind of pull on. Invite your product partner to come up with you. Next time you're drawing something, next time you're designing something, and next time they're doing it, go up and get them to get the pen from them as well. And the last one, the hardest, is to embrace that surprise and to ask the question. But if there was one thing, just one thing that I would ask you to do tomorrow, because this is kind of a lot, it's a mindset shift, it's in practice, it's thinking about things differently, is just ask your product leader, when's the next time you're going to go visit a customer? And can I come? That's it. That will change your relationship from a good relationship. And remember, this is a product perspective. It would change it immediately into a great one. Okay, so I want to just give you what I do, which is we've been working with product managers a long time. No one goes to school for product managers. It's really hard. everyone goes to school for engineering, but we don't go to school for product management. So I have a ton of experience hiring and training and coaching product managers over the course of working for organizations. And what we wanted to do was strip away all this crap and basically say, this is what you need to do day to day. So we've got a 12-week boot camp, it's virtual. And what we find is that if we can work on the products that are day to day, stuff actually gets done. So rather than sort of send your product managers away to get 2 days of training, which is a complete it's a nice little boondoggle for them, but they come back and they'll never do anything because life gets in the way and work gets in the way. For 12 weeks, we build product muscle. So that's my little advertisement. And if you're interested, I'd love to talk to you about that. And I really want to thank you. This has been really fun. I appreciate having you invite a product perspective in. And thank you both, you and Etienne, for inviting me in. Thank you very much.